There is this interesting idea that we live in an attention economy, right? The more eyeballs are on a certain topic, the more money can be made. Now, I think for crypto, that's especially true. The more people talk about a particular altcoin, the higher the price can go. Thus, I find it extremely interesting that NotCoin is the most viewed cryptocurrency on CoinGecko in the last 24 hours. It is so fascinating because it had been a very bad performer. It went down by 18%. And when I look at my own statistics, when I look at the attention of NotCoin, it seems to rather decline over time. The first video on NotCoin on this channel was published 384 days ago. And that video outperformed the average video by a multiple X. Right? The average video is here in gray, and that NotCoin video is the blue line. Now, another video followed. The blue line is now closer to the gray area. Here's the next video, again, similar distance. Another one, now we're getting even closer. Here's the second last one. Still a video that outperformed the average video, but recently, right, the video that was published 2.5 months ago, that initially underperformed massively, and now it starts to become in the regular range. But still, over the months, it seems like the attention on NotCoin tended to decline. Potentially for good reason. Let's have a look at the data most people are not considering. No pun intended, of course. This is not relative to Bitcoin. And while initially we had a very nice pump that was 370% since January of 2024, so in the last 1.5 years, NotCoin underperformed Bitcoin by 94%. Now maybe that comparison isn't that fair because Bitcoin outperformed a lot of altcoins recently. The altcoin market had been very weak. But what about NotCoin relative to TON, right? NotCoin is the meme coin, the leading meme coin on the TON blockchain, and there is maybe some impact of the TON price versus the NOT price. Here is the chart. This is not relative to TON. Again, not that different from the top in January of 2024 to today, an underperformance this time by 80%. So had you invested into TON coin instead of NotCoin, you would now have 5 times more capital after 1.5 years. It appears as if NotCoin is just a long-term underperformer. It appears as if it gets sold off long-term. Maybe it can appreciate in US dollars when all of crypto is going up. But relative to Bitcoin, relative to TON coin, it seems to not do that well. But maybe there's an opportunity, at least in TON coin, right? In the blockchain that holds NOT. The chart definitely looks more promising. So this is now TON coin relative to Bitcoin. The chart starts in April of 2022 and we seem to be in a trading range. I've simply connected those two tops and then moved that line down, and interestingly enough, the bottoms also align quite nicely. I don't think this is a coincidence. I believe that enough people look at similar relative valuation charts and then sometimes pick up those bottoms. Now still, TON coin long-term underperformed Bitcoin. And part of the reason might be early investors cashing out, right? TON coin raised almost 50 million US dollars, potentially more, depending on how much they got from Pantera Capital. But those early investors want to get some payout, and the vesting schedules, unfortunately, are not disclosed. The meme coin NotCoin did not raise that money, but still it was launched on various centralized exchanges that likely got the allocation as well, and the market makers sell off over time. So does it make sense to buy TON? Let's have a look at the usage. Let's have a look at the total value locked. How much capital is currently on the chain? Is there potential positive momentum? This is the total value locked chart of TON. It peaked at roughly 800 million in July 2024. Since then, it's declining. Now, the price of TON itself is declining as well. So when we look at the total value locked measured in TON, we still see the similar peak, but at least the outflows are now slowing down. We have seen some kind of stabilization. The decentralized exchange trading volume measured in TON also seems to be quite stable now. The TON ecosystem really needs a new driver because the leading meme coin is now worth only 200 million and it used to be in the billions. There are 2 stable coins that are leading the ecosystem, but everything else here doesn't excite me too much. It looks like short term, the price of TON is driven by leverage. It's driven by the perpetual futures. And more people are betting on rising prices now, probably because of that relative valuation to Bitcoin. Because the potential upside is, of course, massive. This would be a rally of 300%. Here is the open interest, so the bets on the price on NotCoin. This tends to decline in line with the spot price. So as there's less and less bets on the price, the spot market follows and goes down as well. We see something similar for TON. The difference being that recently we've got more and more open interest increase, while the TON price itself did not yet appreciate. So there are more and more people that are now starting to speculate on TON again, while the price isn't moving much. The funding rate tends to be positive. In other words, there are more longs than shorts. People bet on rising prices in aggregate. Will this bounce here really happen? It's very hard to say because a lot of the supply of TON coin is now in the hands of the market makers. And we don't see that much usage of the chain. So there isn't any organic purchases. This is all just short-term speculation. And if the market makers want to wreck those perpetual futures traders, if they want to maximize liquidation fees, then they're rather going to dump TON coin. So NotCoin as an investment doesn't look great. It just underperforms consistently against pretty much any other metric. TON coin, on the other hand, is a bit more debatable. The outflows seem to have stopped, but there's also no real catalyst besides more leverage entering the market. I'm currently staying away. I'm not betting on any direction. The only thing that might make sense in this setup is to bet on a falling NotCoin relative to Bitcoin or Ethereum or relative to TON. In US dollars, of course, we don't know what's going to happen, but relatively speaking, the price decline is quite constant. Now, what is the likelihood of outperforming Bitcoin by buying an altcoin and holding it for 1 year? So let's say we are in a bull market. Let's say Bitcoin went up. How likely is it, let's say we pick an altcoin in the top 100, that we're actually going to do better than just buying Bitcoin? We would expect that likelihood to be above 50%, right? Because when the market as a whole is going up, the altcoins are smaller, right? They should be more volatile. They should go up even further. So probably more than half of the altcoins should go up when Bitcoin went up as well. But here's something you don't see other crypto YouTubers talk about. What we've got over here is the top 100 altcoins in terms of market cap. And over here, we've got Bitcoin. And we can count the number of altcoins in the top 100 that did better. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There were 18 altcoins that did better than Bitcoin, than there's Bitcoin itself. And there's 81 altcoins that did worse. So during a time when Bitcoin went up by more than 50%, more than 80% of the altcoins did worse. So again, here are the better performers, here is Bitcoin, and here are all the altcoins that did worse than BTC. Now let's have a look at the altcoins that are smaller. So not in the top 100, but from 101 to 200 in terms of market cap. How many altcoins performed better than 51.8%? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of 100 altcoins in that lower tier performed better than Bitcoin. 93 did worse. Let's go another tier down. So this is now the altcoins from 200 to 300. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 altcoins that did better than Bitcoin and 92 that did worse than BTC. In other words, just because the market is going up doesn't mean that the altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin. Most of the time, even during a bull market, the vast majority of altcoins is doing worse, and there's a good reason for this. The first reason is interest by retail. There are fewer and fewer retail investors speculating on crypto, and there's more and more money flowing from Wall Street into crypto. Now, Wall Street doesn't buy the altcoin that is place number 400 in terms of market cap. Wall Street buys Bitcoin and Ethereum. The time to speculate with altcoins is when a lot of new people enter the space, when the number of search queries is going up. Have a look at the social metrics. This is the altcoin daily channel. The number of views is close to all-time lows. Here's the number of newly gained subscribers on Crypto Banter. Here's the number of views on Coin Bureau. And so the riskier parts of the market tend to shrink. For example, there's the pump.fun ecosystem, right? The launchpad of meme coins on Solana. The fraction of trading that happens through pump.fun tended to decline. We had our initial expansion, but since November of last year, less and less of trading on the Solana chain is pump.fun related. The Bitcoin dominance continues to go up, and historically it only went down when it was close to 70%, potentially even higher, 72, 73%. When Bitcoin dominance is going down, that means the altcoins are outperforming. But this is not happening since September of 2022. It's the Wall Street money that currently supports crypto prices, and mainly Bitcoin and Ethereum. The fundamental reason why altcoins tend to do worse than Bitcoin and Ethereum most of the times is tokenomics. It's unlocks of supply, it's the early investors getting paid out, it's the team getting paid out, and it's the demand for the altcoin not growing to the same proportion. Have a look at this here. This is IMX or Immutable X. It had massive increasing supply over time. And so there's no surprise that IMX underperformed Ethereum by 86%. Now this is a logarithmic chart. Here's the same thing on a linear chart. Or have a look at this. This is SEI network. It went from 1.8 billion SEI to currently 4.3 billion. So the supply 2.5x'd. And of course the demand doesn't grow as quickly. And then we see an 80% underperformance. That's then a very common development. Or over here, we've got Arbitrum. It went from 1.3 billion tokens to currently 4.3, so more than a 3x in supply. And again, Arbitrum relative to Ethereum underperformed by 85%. And those kind of charts are not cherry picked, right? Again, the vast majority of altcoins underperforms Bitcoin and Ethereum most of the time, even during a bull market. And that's because of the token inflation. All of the insiders and early investors, the VCs, they make money when this is going down. But we can also make money when this is going down. We do not have to be a venture capitalist or an insider or a Web3 developer in a crypto team. Instead, we can make money from those relative valuations by using decentralized finance or by using perpetual futures on decentralized finance perp exchanges. What you're seeing over here are tutorial videos of the premium membership. So the link is down below. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com. And so I like this strategy a lot during this current market environment. If retail interest suddenly spikes up again, right? If the social metrics go up, if the views on YouTube go up, I will notice this very quickly. And then it might make sense to buy the small altcoins again. Currently, we are not in that market. Why not take advantage of Bitcoin dominance continuing to climb while all of those insiders make money with the token inflation and while all of those tokens tend to do worse? We don't have to find the needle in the haystack. We don't have to find the next Giga token or the next Oxycoin or the next Cheems. We can just bet on all of those other tokens doing worse. We can basically flip this chart. So instead of losing 90% of the time, we can win 90% of the time. It sounds unrealistic, but it's really true, right? Just flip this chart. If you bet on falling prices during times like this, you're making money. And of course, I'm also sharing my own trades. So here's one from April 30th. Of course, I'm not sharing the most recent trades, but here is a trade where I shorted the Trump token. So that was the chart at the time. And then afterwards, surprise, surprise, it tend to go down because the Trump tokenomics are very bad as well. The supply increases very consistently. Or have a look at this. This is WorldCoin that I shorted on May 23rd over here with this chart. Again, I'm sharing this directly in premium in a dedicated channel, the Gerhard's Trade channel. So this chart turned into this chart. We are close to all-time lows. This WorldCoin trade specifically was very nice for the community. Just have a look at all of those copy trades. If you have proper risk management in place, you can make very nice percentage returns as well. I started with this strategy on the Hyperliquid platform 2 months ago. We are now at 9K unrealized P&L and we are betting on relative valuations. So we go long Ethereum and we go short many altcoins. And again, we can have the odds in our favor. This is also psychologically much easier than trying to find the next 10x token. First of all, it's very hard to make a 10x in this market, but also when you're trying to get that much into risk, then it's impossible to not have losing trades. So there will be a lot of losing trades to then have hopefully one trade that makes up for all of the losses. But the issue is with such a strategy, we can't deploy a lot of our capital in a single bet. We've got all of that volatility with that strategy, so we can only bet a few hundred, a few $1,000s. But once we've got a strategy that outperforms more consistently, we can dare to deploy more capital as well. We are not hoping for the big breakthrough. Instead, we are constantly growing our capital. And we do this relatively quickly if we use leverage in the right way. Again, we don't want to over-lever. Of course, we don't want to get broke. But if we hedge ourselves against the general macro environment, the volatility isn't actually that big. So if you're considering to revamp your strategy, if you potentially made gains first and then lost it all, then maybe it makes sense to learn about these things. There is the premium membership. It's currently $125 per month. You will lock in that rate. So once the bull market comes back, I will increase the price back to $165. But if you're now subscribing, you get the $125 and you will not be affected by the future price increase. If the size of your portfolio justifies also to invest in a one-on-one call, then feel free to sign up for the yearly, not for the monthly subscription. You also get a discount of $250 per year. But again, there is the 1-hour Zoom call where you can ask me anything and where you can have a look at your assets, not just at crypto, but at asset classes in general. Now you should see a link to Premium directly appearing here on the screen. When you click on that, you will land on the sign up page. If it's your first time over here, feel free to subscribe. I publish these regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in Premium. Cheers.